Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
For those who know me, for those who listen to this podcast, you'll know that I don't want to say I'm a man of science. I enjoy science. I'm interested in science. I'm interested mainly in astronomy. That's my personal interest. My dad he had degrees in chemistry, geology. My mom was a math teacher. So math and science was I come by it honestly, let me put it that way. But as I indicated, I'm somewhat interested in, I am interested, not somewhat interested, I'm interested in astronomy. I took a number of classes when I was in college, and I enjoy it. I'll watch a lot of YouTube videos on astronomy and what they're studying. One of the interesting things out there, now this is all coming back to networking, you just relax, is the asteroid belt. And the asteroid belt, it sits between Jupiter and Mars. And the asteroid belt is generally made up of a lot of rocky items. A lot of metals are in the asteroid belt. Essentially, the asteroid belt they've talked about mining the asteroid belt or going there and just, picking a particular asteroid there. Some of these things are the size of states. And they have a lot of rare earth elements that we can mine. So that's, kind of a conversation. We haven't been back to the moon in however many years, 50 years. So I don't know how likely that is, but things happen fast in this day and age with respect to technology. Now, the interesting thing about the asteroid belt is all these objects out there, and there are thousands, maybe millions of objects in the asteroid belt. They generally stay out there, and they orbit the sun, much like the Earth orbits the sun. Now, on average, it depends. The asteroid belt has various belts within the belt. There's the inner belt, there's the middle belt, and there's the outer belt. And they orbit the sun at different paces. The inner belt might orbit at 3 years, and it's not moving in unison. Some objects are moving faster than others. The middle belt, it's 4 to 5 years, and the outer belt, it might take 6 years. And there's a lot we don't understand about what all's happening there. It's a lot of chaos. Think of it as a highway with lots of cars, millions of cars, and everybody's going and driving. Some driving fast, some driving slow, some are crashing, some are changing speeds, and that's the asteroid belt. For the most part, those objects stay out there and they don't come into the inner solar system. Again, this asteroid belt's between Mars and Jupiter. Now, the reason they don't come in is Jupiter. Jupiter has a gravitational pull on all these objects. Now, what I find interesting is, and this is where it kind of relates back to networking, is that Jupiter has its own orbit. And Jupiter goes around the sun once every 12 years. So its gravitational pull, its influence on the asteroid belt is not always direct. I mean, you have to stop and do the math, but I can understand how Jupiter would pull an object away from the sun if it were directly between it and the sun, but that's not always the case, and a lot of times that's not the case. But it shows you the power of Jupiter, and Jupiter is a very large planet. But it shows you the influence that object has on those asteroids in the asteroid belt. And really, in many ways, it's a protector of Earth. Occasionally, it will kick objects out, and they'll come hurling towards Earth. We've been hit with that's what did in the dinosaurs. Any rate, here's an object has got influence, even though you wouldn't think that it has influence on it. And it in many ways is like people, if you will. And that we have influence on others, and I've talked about influence on here. You have influence on your network, and a lot of times you have influence on your network, and you might you might not you might not even be around and have influence on people, or you might be around and people might not know you're around and you have influence on people. I stumbled across a study where it's called the Batman effect, where what they did was they put a person with a Batman costume on mass transit. It's an L train or a bus, and the the person in the Superman outfit would walk on with a woman who was noticeably pregnant. I don't know if she was actually pregnant or just made her up to look pregnant. They have devices you can wear to make a woman look pregnant. Um, and so what they did in the study is they'd have the woman get on mass transit and all by herself. That was the control. And then the experimental aspect of it was Batman would come on with her. Now, a lot of people who in the study said they didn't notice Batman, but what ended up happening is that when Batman was present, whether people knew that Batman was there or not, I know this is going to sound crazy, but when Batman was present, people gave up their seats far more often than when Batman wasn't. To me, I find that totally fascinating. That you know, Batman didn't say anything, right? Batman just got on there, and they show in the study that I read, they had showed a picture. Just stood there, didn't do anything, just stood there. And again, people who went through the study, they asked them, I think it was 138 people that they observed or who acted and who they talked to gave up their seat and they talked to us, and many said I didn't notice somebody with a Batman costume. Now they thought about trying a Superman costume. Superman probably would arguably maybe do have better results. Superman is much more polite than Batman, right? Batman's kind of gruff. I'm Batman. Um, could have prompted even more pro-social behavior, if you will. But they didn't do it with Superman, but they did it with a Superman poster, and there was a poster on the wall subsequent to um, people boarding, and it made people more pro-social, more willing to give up their seat. And so I find these studies interesting um, in that there are things that are happening within us. There are things that influence us, and we don't know that they influence us. And we influence people as well, and sometimes we might not think we influence people. Well, I'm gonna be there, but I don't really have an opportunity to talk. I can't stay long, so probably not worth it for me. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. If you stop and think about the Batman effect, maybe you showing up at a meeting, maybe you showing up and just showing support for somebody, even if you can't be there very long, there's an argument that you have an impact. Oh my gosh, Tom was here. Tom made a point of coming here. Tom traveled across town to come here. They're not going to know whether you stayed for the whole thing or not, but wow, you made a point of coming. Tom made a point of coming. Um, those things matter. Those things matter. Little things like commenting on somebody's post. Those things matter. Wow, Susan noticed what Jim had written. Those things matter. And here's a situation where people don't even know that, or claim they don't even know that Batman's on the bus, and they're giving up their seats in a higher percentage than if Batman weren't there. Now the study's not perfect because it's not the same people giving up the same seats, and um, on you can't this is a study that you can't totally duplicate, if you will. These are different people, different times, probably different times of day, so you can poke holes in it. Um, But people doing these studies, they try to control for a lot of these variables and they try to adjust in their analysis. And so there's a degree of validity to what's happening here. But there's influence. There's influence that you exert, that other people exert on people around them. Well, pick on you. You have the ability to influence people. You have the ability to influence people by what you say. You have the ability to influence what people do just by showing up, just by being there. Just by being there, people might be arguably are a little bit kinder because you're there. Arguably, they're a little more generous because you're there. Arguably, things are a little more civil because you're there. Much like Jupiter has influence on the asteroid belt, you have influence on your network. When you're there and when you're not there, it's a lasting influence. So, and people have an influence on you as well, but you can't control other people, but you can control yourself, and you can decide, you know what, I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be Batman. I'm going to be Batwoman in this situation. Even though I'm not going to be able to say anything, I'm just going to be sitting in the room. That matters. It matters in some small way. You have influence, use it.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.